Welcome back to the Justice Factor. Was Helen Zille pushed from the leadership of the DA? Did she jump? What is her legacy? And who succeeds her? Our guest now is Professor Steven Friedman, Director of the Center for the Study of Democracy at Rhodes University and the University of Johannesburg. Professor Friedman, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Did she jump? Was she pushed? Does it matter?
Well, I'm not sure that it does matter. I think that she jumped. And the reason I think that she jumped is that if you look at her leadership style, she's not the kind of person to be pushed around by her federal executive. So one assumes this was a decision she took on her own.
Why do you think that?
Well, I just wonder if she hadn't reached her ceiling, quite frankly. I mean, there are two things which make one wonder about that. The first one is that if you look at the 2014 election result, the DA did better than they'd done in the last national election. They did worse than they'd done in the last local election. And they say, well, you can't compare like, you've got to compare like with like. But the bottom line is less people voted for them in 2014 than voted for them in 2011. The other thing is, if you look at her style, I mean, in the last year there have been quite a few high-profile exits from positions in the DA. Lindiwe Mazibuko, the most famous one, but Tim Harris leaving Parliament, a couple of people leaving the DA head office. And that certainly creates the impression that you were dealing at that stage by a leader who wasn't actually getting on terribly well with the people she was working with, and that's usually a sign that the leader's been there too long.
The way it came out was quite abrupt. Many people had expected that she'd said that, you know, she's going to stand again for the leadership position, and so there wasn't even any real challenge to her. And then suddenly on Saturday it's, oh, we're having a big meeting tomorrow and there's going to be a major announcement. Boom, it's done. Do you think that was handled well? Has it had what impact on the electorate, on her support base has it had? And you know, surprising as it is.
Well, I think any influence on the support base is going to take us a while to track because, yeah, you know, the Federal Congress is in a month's time. But I mean, and I think, you know, the interesting thing to watch is that we seem to have a lot of municipal by-elections in this country at the moment. It's always worth watching them. If you start seeing a slippage of the DA vote in the municipal by-elections, then you know that something is up. But it will be destabilizing to the DA in the short term, but the question becomes, can they capitalize on it in the long term?
Do you put any credence to the suggestions that the way it was done with only 3-4 weeks to go to the elective conference, that it takes away the chance for anyone who could have been a credible challenger to the position or who might have wanted to put themselves forward, gives them too little time and therefore allows Mmusi Maimane space to essentially just take over?
Well, I'm not sure I do buy that. I mean, I'm not sure why Mmusi Maimane is terribly privileged or advantaged by the timing. Of course, if one were to discover that he knew about this weeks ago and nobody else did, that would change the calculation. Mm-hmm. But I think certainly there was a feeling on her part, rightly or wrongly, that she wanted the succession thing over in a hurry. And I guess there's a bit of an attempt to get one over the ANC and to say, well, you guys spend months and months on your succession things and we do it all in a couple of weeks.
You made an interesting point about the electoral support. If you compare the May 7 election last year and the local election before that, and that actually the DA, if you were to compare like with like, there was an up on the national scale, but at the local government scale, it's not the same thing. So what's her legacy when one looks back at the past 8 years? What would you say? For now, we can say this is, as party leader, these are the positives, these are the negatives.
Look, Justice, the legacy, clearly, the positive legacy is that she was the first DA leader, and in fact the first leader of all the parties the DA had come out of, to make a serious pitch for black voters, to make a serious attempt to become a really non-racial party. That was her legacy, and she brought in some black voters, she brought in some black leadership figures, and that she will be remembered positively for. I think what people may look back and discover is that, you know, leaders very often can only take things so far. I think she was very effective at bringing new people into the party. But that's not enough.
But as you said, there are some who left too.
Well, exactly, because then you start getting irritated. You're not doing it my way, and you're not doing it my way, etc. But on the bigger picture, I mean, the real challenge for the DA is how do they become more credible among black South Africans? And perhaps we'll discover that she was the person who was quite good at making that question possible in the first place by bringing people into the party, but she didn't really have what it takes to take it a bit further and to make the DA really a party which can be credible among the majority.
That has become a bit of a holy grail among people talking about the DA, that no, the DA has to have, the next leader has to be black. Is that the way to being credible, or is it in the policy space?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, the obvious question is, does this all hinge on whether the leader is black? Absolutely not. What it hinges on is whether you have a leader who realizes that some of the things the party has done in the past need to change, because otherwise you're not going to be credible among black people. But it is in the sense that precisely because of that hype the whole time, precisely because, for example, of the frantic attempt to get Mampela on the ballot, clearly on the basis that you needed a black face on the ballot, I think that's painted the DA into a corner where if the next leader is not black, then they will be seen to be anti-transformation, and they will be seen to be hostile to the majority and into white supremacy, etc. So I think they've created a situation virtually where they have to go for a black leader if they want to maintain credibility.
You spoke about, your expression was interesting, that the many bits that form what is now the DA, and there's all sorts. There's the National Party, there's a perceived colored bloc of voters in the Western Cape, there's the black middle class, there's a sort of heartful factor from some sections of the community. What happens to this? Because clearly it's been held together by, whether it was Tony Leon's leadership bringing it together, Helen Zille over the past 8 years. Will it be affected? Are there some, let's say there is a black leader, for example, that one of these formations may feel like, oops, no, this is not for me anymore. Can it be held together? Is that I
think it can be held together. I mean, you're absolutely right that whoever takes over is going to have a problem. I mean, if it is a white person who takes over, they're going to have a huge problem. If it's a black person who takes over, they're still going to have to do a huge juggling act because the DA has to move towards becoming even more credible among black voters, and then you're faced with the fact that your most secure support base is in the white areas of the country, or among white citizens. I think there is a bit of room for whoever takes over to move in that direction, because quite frankly at the moment, where do white supporters of the DA go if they don't like the new leader? Yes, maybe somebody breaks away and forms an opposition party, etc. But there is a sense in the suburbs at the moment where the DA is the only game in town. Now, that may not last forever, but it gives a new leader some wiggle room, if you like, some space to actually do some innovative things and see how they turn out.
Professor Steven Friedman, thanks so much. I look forward to speaking to you just before May 9, when the DA goes to its conference and elects a new leader. It should be fun. After the break, our winner and loser of the week.